I've always just loved the feeling of being on trails, and even when it's hard, when you go up, it's like really hard, but then you come down, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
And so I've always been motivated by that. But in terms of all these endeavors, bigger things that I've done, it's not about big event, and that the big event is great and everything, but it's got to be fun in the moment. Like there's too much work that goes into that kind of thing to not enjoy the process. I do really enjoy the process, and that's not to say that I don't have to kick myself in the butt from time to time to get out the door, but it's
Right.
just knowing that feeling of well-being and that feeling of really to be able to enjoy a nice long run at the weekend requires the less enjoyable 5-mile trot around the block.
Hey everyone, John Heringer here, Chief Motivator of Method3 Fitness, and welcome to another episode of the Stronger for Today show, where we bring you the stories, the science, and the strategies to help you, the older adult, improve the way you move, eat, and think, so you can achieve your goals and live stronger for today. Today's episode, I'm joined by a partner of Method3. That's what we call our clients, our members. Mareese Keane. If you had to guess, how long have you been a partner now at Method3?
I think I'll be coming up on 5 years in the spring of next year.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. And so I'm excited to jump in. I think it's going to be great. The stories you share, the conversation we have. You are 50 years young this year, and you've accomplished some amazing things. Most notably, and recently here, a 9-day adventure race, which was the World Championship of Adventure Racing.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. So let's just jump right into that one, because I think that's amazing in and of itself, no matter what. But at 50, I think it's even that much more amazing and showcases what we're capable of. So I'd love to hear, for those people that don't really know or understand what adventure racing is, maybe we give them a little bit of background there, and then you can touch base on what this 9-day journey encompassed.
Absolutely. Yeah, adventure racing is a multi-sport activity, and it can range from a race that's a few hours long to 9 days. It's pretty
Yeah.
much at the limits of it. So it's typically going to include trekking and mountain biking and some paddle sport, and then it regularly includes other adventurous things like ropes courses.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Canoeing. I mean, you're biking, you're canoeing, you're mountaineering, you're
any
doing,
paddle sport, can be included. So, and then the other key aspect of it is that it's typically done in a team. 4 is the classic, but it can be in smaller teams too. And it is done with map and compass. So you're navigating the whole thing without any electronics. Usually races don't allow phones at all. So for 9 days, I had a rather nice respite from the news of the world, and we just had no contact with the outside world. So, I was at the World Championship race at the end of September. It was up in British Columbia. It was really fun preparing for it because you get a little schematic of the race. So you get a general sense of, you're starting off on your mountain bike. It's going to be 70 kilometers, and then you're going to go into a paddle section. And so they gave a general schema of the race, but we actually didn't know how it was going to start. So we were starting, everyone was meeting in Penticton, and then on the day before the race, we were bused pretty much 600 kilometers away. And we started in Pemberton, British Columbia, and then we followed a course over 9 days back to Penticton. So we got to be in places that people don't normally go, and it was a really, really awesome experience.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And so what were some of the conditions that you encountered on that? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a nice balmy 70 degrees outside the whole time.
We pretty much had it all, I would say. We started on a cold and frosty morning in Pemberton, but we had lots of heat during the day. We were going to peaks. We were up in the Alpine on that first day. We got some sleet and snow. We then had a midnight downhill mountain biking on dirt roads, which was absolutely freezing. And then we got beautiful calm conditions on crystal clear lakes. We had rain, we had more snow, we had hot.
Goodness.
I mean, we went through quite a few climactic zones. There's a lot of microclimates up in that part of British Columbia. And then when you're going all through the day and night, you just hit a lot of big swings and you're going from high to low. So we hit a lot of big swings of temperature. So we were, yeah, so it's nonstop racing. You decide when and how you want to sleep along the course. So we're mid pack. We weren't going for the win. We were going, our goal of the race was to clear the course. So in a race like this, you're trying to find control points, and often there's places where you might miss a deadline, so you'll be short coursed. We'll have to divert you, make you take a shorter course. So our objective was to clear the course, to hit all the control points on the race, and we did that. So we were super stoked for
Yeah.
that goal and for achieving that goal. So we knew we were going to need some sleep. I mean, the top teams are really going on very little sleep, but they're finishing a couple of days ahead of us as well. So we, on average, slept about 3 hours a night. Over the course of 205 hours of racing, we slept for 24 hours in total.
My
But
goodness.
we were, so, there's some strategy involved in, do you sleep in lower down before you go up high where it's going to be really cold, or do you push through until you've come down off the mountain and you're no longer in the snow zones? There's a
Yeah.
lot of strategy in terms of figuring out how you're going to make the best use of your time. You also don't want to be wandering around, as we call it, the stumbly mumblies in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
where you're not really thinking that straight, and you're probably better off just sleeping. So we did quite well on 3 hours a night. I mean, the amazing thing about these races is that you've just no idea what you're capable of until you do it. Someone had told me a few years ago that that was what I was going to be doing, I absolutely would not have believed them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You would have
It's been an
laughed and everyone would have
escalating
moved on. Yeah.
madness.
Well, and I think so there's so much to unpack there. I think so 9 days, a variety of different modalities, biking, canoeing, you're using upper body, you're using lower body. What would you guess your elevation, the gain that you did over that time?
So we can use a Garmin watch to track, but it doesn't, when it's in adventure racing mode, it doesn't give you any data. So you can't
Mm,
actually track the race. So my Garmin at the end said, and it's what probably wasn't perfectly accurate, but it said we did 990 kilometers and we did 19,000 meters of climbing.
19,000 meters.
So that's like 60,000 feet of climbing over 9 days. There was a lot of up and down.
1,000 feet of climbing. Okay. So, yeah, I think just in and of itself, it's quite the amazing, physical feat. Can you touch on though? I mean, I think obviously you've got some camaraderie with some people that are doing it there with you. Was there ever any moment for you or for others? I know you've done it a little bit of time, but this is a pretty intense, 9 day trek. You don't necessarily know how long it's going to take, where there's feelings of doubt, there's things creeping into your head. I'd love to have you share just a little bit about that, what some of the mindset was, the thoughts you were having, because I feel like every person's journey on some type of physical fitness goal, we'll call it, whatever that may be, adventure racing or just getting out to the gym for the first time today in months, right? There's always someone talking to us on this shoulder, right? I always think of like the good angel and the little devil, like, you can do it. No, you can't. Let it go. It's okay. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but kind of something that you get lost in your thoughts, and it you can spiral into some of these thoughts that lead you away from where you want to go, right? Kind of like rationalizing the behavior to step away, to quit, to let you, whatever it may be. Can you speak to that? Was there ever any seeds of doubt as you kind of went through this process?
The experience of having done it before definitely just gives you some confidence, I would say. But I think one of the things I've really learned is that I just can't think about the whole thing. It all has
Mm,
to be thought of in sections. So I don't go in going, oh my God, in 9 days' time, I'm still going to be here.
yeah.
It's very much about, okay, well, what's our next goal? So, and like some of these are quite long as well, but if you could have a 2 day trek, we were literally trekking for 2 days. So even that's too long. So you just breaking it up. Okay, well, we need to get up to the ridge and we need to do, there's some controls on the ridge and then we're going to drop down again. Okay, well, let's just focus on, and then we'll sleep. And then I don't really think about that past that first
Yep.
that next
Yep.
sleep.
Yep.
So that's been a really important part of my psychology during the race. I think the teamwork is absolutely critical as well. And I was really fortunate to have a very positive team. Like my teammates really just, we just had a positive energy at all times. And that doesn't mean that everyone had a positive energy at all times, but there was enough of a, just like, let's keep going, what's our
Yeah.
next thing? What do you need now? And then the other really important part of adventure racing is that you have to park your ego, because you have to ask for help if you need it. And there's lots of ways teammates can help. Like if you're struggling in the moment, someone can take your bag. Someone can take some of the weight out of your bag. You can put, if we're on bikes and it's, we're just going along flattish roads or climbing hills, you can be put on tow and just, it just gives you that little bit of a boost to recover and to get some food and to eat. And like, that's another thing. We eat a ton of food. And
Sure. You
making
got to
sure
fuel.
that we're all
Yeah.
eating is a key part. If someone's cranky and negative, generally we find they just need to eat something.
Yes. I think my wife and I agree with that with our kids pretty much
Yeah,
all the time. So, yes, as humans, for sure, adults and kids alike. So, I want to touch on what you said there, which is kind of like you compartmentalized by focusing on the present, what you have to do now, and then the immediate goal. And so it's almost like, here is where we want to go, but we're just going to focus on this step first, right?
absolutely.
We got there. Great. Let's get to the next step.
Yeah.
And so I love that because I think sometimes people can think of they just want to go 0 to 60, right? And in a race like that, I mean, truthfully, you can't, right? There's no way you can just go, I'm going to get there in a day. Impossible, right? So it forces this beautiful combination of short term and long term kind of goal setting, if you will,
Hmm.
planning, right? Your strategy of what's necessary to achieve the task or the section you called it at hand, right? And then ultimately still knowing in the future what you have to plan and prepare for so that you're fueling, you're sleeping, whatever it may be, to prepare for the next section. And I think sometimes in overall health and wellness, people have that mindset of, whether it's 0 to 60, whether it's all or nothing, instead of just saying, hey, what's the next thing I can do? What can I layer on top of this? And so we talk about that a lot of times at Method 3 with, hey, oh, I know I should be doing 10,000 steps a day, or I know I should be sleeping this much. And gosh, I probably should be eating like this. And oh, I should be exercising. Well, got cardio, weights. And it's like, yeah, all of that is kind of, I don't want to say it's noise. It's all true, but what's the one thing we can do right now? Right. And I forget the question. It's kind of like the one thing you can do right now that if by doing it will make everything else easier or unnecessary. And if you can focus on that and just get good and consistent at that, then we can start layering things in, right? Just trying to take a little bit of what you're saying and bring it to, an overall health and wellness program someone's kind of trying to encounter. So I want to back up. You said if someone had told you X number of years ago you'd be doing a 9-day adventure race, you would have said they were crazy. Have you always? So it sounds like you haven't always done adventure racing. Number one. And number two, I guess backing up even before that, can you share with us just a little bit more about your journey with health and wellness in general, with exercise, with fitness, like the entire thing? Like, has this always been a huge cornerstone for you? Was it learned? Was it just kind of share the background of that, and then maybe what led you to even get involved in adventure racing?
Yeah, yeah. I really have always been involved in some sporting endeavor or adventuring of some kind. I think I started back. I mean, went to a Catholic all girls school in Ireland. Sports weren't really a high focus, but I always rode my bike to school. Like that gave me
Yeah.
independence. It was about 3 miles or 3 or 4 miles, and I rode my bike to school. So I think I was always active. And
Mm.
then in college, I started kayaking and became a competitive canoe polo player, which is a sport, again, none of you have ever heard of. Canoe polo is like water polo in kayaks. So I played
Cool. I played
competitive
water
canoe.
polo, so that sounds fun.
It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. So I played international. I played on the national Irish team for several years. Again, like I've always gone for these niche sports.
Love
It's
it.
much
Love it.
easier to get on the team when you're in a niche sport. So And then I moved to Vancouver in 2000, spent 8 years in Vancouver, and that's a very outdoorsy culture and community there. We bought mountain bikes. I started mountain biking, really enjoyed that. I started orienteering there as well, which was something I
Mm,
really enjoyed. And I thought, man, if I could run faster, orienteering would be way easier. So I started running. And so I did do a little bit of adventure racing way back in the thousands in the first wave of Eco Challenge. It was kind of there was a decent community in Vancouver involved in that. And then had my kids and, kind of kept tipping away. And then we moved to the US, and I didn't have a work permit for about 6 years. And, I had two small children, which was, kept me busy enough. But
I'm
honestly,
sure it did. Yeah.
I really needed some personal goals to just keep me motivated for things for myself. So
Yeah.
I started training for marathons and I qualified for Boston. And then I
Wow.
started doing triathlons and I did an Ironman in 2014. And then I got a job. I got a work permit and a job, and everything kind of had to scale back again. So,
Mm,
everything, things haven't always been super intense. But I did my first 24-hour adventure race in 26. I was absolutely terrified. I just thought it was going to be
yeah.
I was so intimidated by it and had an amazing experience with really great teammates and just like really enjoyed it. Did a few back then, and then I had some health issues that kind of required me to scale back, which were resolved in around 2021, 22 time frame. But in that period, I had began to feel really uncomfortable running a little bit, but I was just feeling like a little bit out of whack, that muscles are sore. There seem to be imbalances every time. So I was like, I got to do some strength training. So that was actually what really motivated me to join Method 3. I was just like, I just need to feel like my body is strong and balanced. And I joined just to start strength training. So I'd always been biking and hiking, running, some kayaking, but just was start I don't know, I was beginning to feel my age maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I started just, doing some strength training and got a few injuries resolved. Like there was just weaknesses in different hip muscles and big movement muscles. And like now, 5 years later, I just feel so much more resilient. And that is really what makes the difference when you're going into these very long events. It's the
Yeah.
resilience because, a lot of people can do a long one-day event, but it's when it's day after day that you just really need to be sure that you're not gonna be broken down so much that you're gonna end up getting injured. So,
Sure.
that has been a big like, getting strong has been a big part of my journey in this.
Yeah. I love it. So, what would you say, Marie? So, it sounds like, you've had a really good relationship in terms of like just embracing health and fitness, as a part of your life in a variety of different capacities and very unique sports and racing. What would you say your mindset has been about around that the whole time, right? Because I think a lot of people struggle with just embracing the concept, right, of getting into health and wellness. You've had it as an aspect of your life like almost forever, right? And then you scaled back and come back and move forward and done different things and added in resistance training now and things like that to continue to propel you forward. Because I think, if I may, I feel like you're very aware of the benefits that you derive from it, right? That you're
Totally.
50 years young and you just crushed a 9-day world championship adventure race, right? Um, so what would you say your how have you developed, and maybe it's hard to even think back because it's always been just intrinsically kind of a part of you, but how have you developed such a positive relationship with fitness so much so that it's become a part of, like you said, it's like, yeah, I did this, I had kids, I got in triathlons, and I just did an Ironman, so it's you make it sound so nonchalant because I love the humility, but these are big things which for a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, holy crap, how does she do all this, right? uh, so maybe you can share about that, like what if you had to think through how you've cultivated that kind of a relationship. Because sometimes you finish like an Ironman, right? Which I have never had the pleasure of doing. It's on my bucket list, but that's a lot of training. And that's an event that sometimes people will do. And then they'll say, I'm done with exercise for quite some
Yeah.
time. And they'll take a break that ends up turning into a year, right? And
Yeah.
so tell me how you've cultivated this to have it be just such a cornerstone for you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I will say that after Ironman, I did not ride my bike for about 5 months. I think I was
Yeah.
like every night I'd go out to the garage and look at it and go, God, no,
Yeah.
I can't do that. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
But honestly, I there like I think there are days when I just know I just need to get out into the trails and into the forest and just have a little headspace all on my own. Right? So that's one thing that always keeps me motivated. And in terms of being able to do that, you have to maintain a certain level of, because if I don't do it for a few months and then I go and try and get that lovely headspace in the forest, like it's so hard that it just sucks.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good. Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. So I just love I've always just loved the feeling of being on trails, and even when it's hard, when you go up it's like really hard, but then you come down and that's really fun. And so I think there's always been that. I've always been motivated by that. But in terms of all these endeavors that, bigger things that I've done, if I wasn't it's not about the big event, and that, like, the big event is great and everything, but if I'm not enjoying the journey and the day to day, there's really not a ton of I don't it's gotta be
Yeah.
fun in the moment. Like, there's too much work that goes into that kind of thing to not enjoy the process. So, I think I do have somewhat of, like, I am a competitor. I've always been a competitor. I like to compete, but fortunately, I tend to just wanna keep compete with myself. So, like, I'm not motivated by, like, I know I'm not winning anything anymore. There was a time where I was podiuming in like local trail races. That's not happening anymore. Like, that's fine. That's totally fine. But I just love I do really enjoy the process. And that's not to say that I don't have to kick myself in the butt from time to time to get out the door. But it's just knowing that feeling of well-being and that feeling of really to be able to enjoy a nice long run at the weekend requires the less enjoyable 5-mile trot
Mm,
around the block. Or
yeah.
there's definitely early mornings when I'm like, I'm going to Method 3. All
Yeah.
right. And then I get there and it's always a good time.
Yep. Yep. Well, I think I want to touch on a couple things. One, I think, and it's something that we talk about a lot. It's like fitness has got to be fun.
Yeah,
And we do our best as coaches and as a community, I think, to have it be like that, whether it's fun and strength and motivation and support through an individual coach, if people are doing private training, or the camaraderie of the group, whatever it is, the team, and then I think it's a combination of that and this notion. You have some awareness that's, I think, also just it's built into you, but I feel like it's also been something that you, whether consciously or unconsciously, you've embedded, is this awareness of, when I do these hard things, I also get to reap the benefits of enjoying the process a little bit more than if I didn't do it at all. Because if I didn't do it at all and then I tried to go do it, like you said, out on the trails and have this beautiful headspace and really be present to enjoy the beauty and majesty of everywhere that you're running or walking through or hiking through or trekking through, you're not able to, because you're like kind of in agony because you haven't done it for 6 months, right? And I think that's really important, because I think so often people view this as a chore or solely as a means to an end, where when you really start to just embrace it as part of a lifestyle and you put in the work, albeit like you said, the times where you don't want to go, you're really able to enjoy just a multitude of other things. You're able to enjoy the process, but then you're able to enjoy the headspace that it delivers, right?
totally.
And really be mindful and present for that. And I think that's so important, because what you're doing, and my hope is that people are doing now, is that that work you're putting in now is laying the foundation, quite literally, and I'll say that you've been doing it for years, obviously, is laying the foundation to continue to enjoy those things. Not just the trekking, not just but the simple act of being fit enough, strong enough, well enough to at any age, 50, 60, 70, 80, and then some, to go out and enjoy the trails and enjoy that headspace.
100%.
And that is a beautiful thing. And I really that is, I mean, at our core at Method 3, that's what we want for every human on the planet is just this ability to embrace the overarching whatever you want to throw in health and wellness and fitness because and fitness we feel is this big cornerstone because personally, I feel like when you can engage in these consistent habits just a few times a week. Again, that's where I tell people it doesn't have to be like 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's like, no, unless you're training for something very specific, we can talk about that. But otherwise, for normal everyday people trying to get some health and wellness benefits here, it's like a couple times a week. Give me 30 minutes if you can. Give me 5 in the beginning, right? And you can just build on that. And in doing so, you start to feel better. It's one of the immediate things I feel like. And then all of a sudden you're feeling, wow, I feel like more endurance. I feel stronger. I feel more positive. And it permeates to every other aspect of your life. Right. And I love speaking with some of our partners that are 70 and 80 years young and they're doing things physically or are doing stuff with their grandkids. And I'm like, this is what it's all about. Right. And the cool thing is that, not all of them were engaged in necessarily the activities that you have been for quite some time. They may have started really like kind of being serious about it at 70.
Hmm.
And yet here they are still able to reap the benefits. So it's one of those things where, you got to be kind to your body and start where you can, but starting is a number one thing. And it leads to a multitude of awesome things that you can enjoy. So tell me how, because you're a working professional, you still make time for all these things. How do you make time for this? Because I think a lot of times, and I know for you, it's again probably this unconscious non-negotiable that you just do, right? How have you come to make time for all these different aspects, whether it's a run, a hike, a Method 3 session, to allow yourself to make time for that? I think a lot of people sometimes feel guilty for prioritizing health and wellness over other things in their life. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it gets a low portion on the totem pole, even though when you're executing on it, you actually put yourself in a better position to serve all the other roles in your life, right? And other people.
I
So
so agree with that.
share with me how you've been able to do that and feel so comfortable with that. Because I want people to pull some of this from you and start to try to ingrain it in their life.
Well, I would say like on a weekly basis, I am anchored around a couple of things that are in the schedule that happen, that I really look forward to or have some other motivating factors. So I have
Yes.
2 Method 3 sessions, private, semi-private sessions, right? And honestly, they're non-negotiable because I've paid for them.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, perfect.
I mean, I do love the flexibility of being able to reschedule those, but at the same time, like, I do not miss them because I've paid for them. That's highly
Love it.
motivating for me.
Love it.
And then I have a group run early on Thursday morning that I just will never miss unless I'm traveling. And around that, I actually am quite flexible. Like I don't follow even when I'm training for big events, I really don't follow like dedicated training plans. I just do what I can, and so which is, in terms of what a lot of people do, it's quite a lot, right? I appreciate that, but if I'm away for the weekend, and I'm meeting friends, and like instead of doing what I would maybe normally do, which would be go out for a longer bike ride or a longer on Saturday and Sunday, I don't do it. Like, but maybe I'll get 30 minutes in with one of my friends who wants to trot, go for an
Yeah.
easy, gentle run for 30 minutes. And that's perfect. Like, I don't get hung up on the details. But at the same time, like, I just know that then when I can do it, I need to make it happen. So I think I just squeeze it in around, like, I have those anchoring things and then I do what I can around that. And if it's not a whole lot, that's okay. But, you know, and there'll be obviously training for something is motivating in the sense that, you need to be getting in the whatever it is you need to be getting in to achieve to be able to enjoy the event you're working.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like I just don't get bogged down in the details. I just try and
Yeah.
have ethos around making sure I get it done. I have kind of general goals set in terms of
Yeah.
how many hours a week I generally want to run or bike, or how many times a week I want to bike. And it's, if you see my activity schedule, it's up and down. Like sometimes it's a lot
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not a whole lot. So
But it sounds like you're not beating yourself up
no,
for not
but
up to, yeah, and I think that's important. I think a lot of people when they set out on these things, maybe because they've tried and failed. I mean, ultimately, if
yeah,
I think back to some of the conversations I've had, that is sitting in there in the back of their mind the whole time. And so they feel like it's got to be this or nothing. I have to achieve it or else. I have to do this or else. And sometimes I think while I'm not advocating for rationalizing all of our decisions to not do what we need to do, right? Like you're saying, get our butts up and do what we need to do to ultimately enjoy the things we want to as well. I think giving ourselves some grace and having that flexibility is important. And we're
yeah.
human, and that's okay.
I would also say there's also something very freeing about a schedule too, where you don't have to put
Mm,
too much thought. And I have done this in the past, like in years past where I've been really going for a specific goal. But I will say that one of the best things about going to Method 3 is that I go into that class. I do not have to think from one end to the other. Somebody has programmed that. They tell me what to do. I don't have to overthink it. Like I can have input into it if I wish. But at the
yeah,
same time, like, and they know my general goals. Justin is the coach I mostly go to, and he knows what my goals are. And but there's something liberating about just not having to think about it. And I think sometimes having a schedule and going, okay, well, this is my whole week is programmed and this is what's going to happen. That can also be really liberating because you're just
I
like, this is going
100%
to be.
yes,
I
and I
mean, I'm
love it.
I'm just fortunate to be at the time in my life where, my kids, I'm a new empty nester this year, so I have no kids at
Mm,
home. Like I have a lot more flexibility. So
yeah,
it doesn't need to be for me that very highly programmed approach, but there is
yeah.
something good to that too.
Well, and 2 days you're doing other things outside of the studio, and I
Yes.
think it's important for people to hear that, like, there's a lot of different ways a fitness plan can work, right? For anyone out there. And I would agree. I'm very much so a schedule guy myself. If it's there and scheduled and it allows you the freedom to kind of just get it out of your head, not overthink it, be like, what's up next? Oh, time to work out.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just up, time to go to Method 3, time to do this. Creates that. Interestingly, it kind of creates that. So anyway, this has been great. I hope that there's so many great things I want people to take from this. I think, from someone who's been just a lifelong exerciser that I think is really, engaged in, again, like I said, I think there's a lot of it consciously, some of it just unconsciously, like it's just a part of you. It's a part of the fabric of like who you are, what's important to you, how you feel, right? And ultimately what you want to be able to do at this point in your life, right? So it's been great. I really appreciate you sharing the story, sharing tidbits on what makes you tick and how you're successful with all this stuff. And also just, a variety of different strategies that people can hopefully employ. My goal for everyone is just, out of everything we talked about, if there's just one little golden nugget from all the wisdom that you shared on your journey, then it's something that someone can implement to be successful. That's what it's all about, just one step forward. So thank you so much for your time, Mareese. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me on the Stronger for Today show. And we'll see you around the studio.
Cheers, John. Thank you.
Thank you.